So in essence, what they're saying is, we can keep it so that if we decide to develop it, we don't have to go back to the county anymore. It's already our property. And that's what we're concerned about. These people, we need the jobs, like I said, and we're not against hard rock, but we're tired of this stuff where, tell these people to come out and be straightforward about it, you know? Let us know what's going on. Because each time we turn around, there's something new. And it's like we're just mushrooms, you know? And we're tired of it. And that's all I have to say about it. I mean, that's why, you know, we're worried about the eminent domain because of the cul-de-sacs or walls or whatever wants to be put up, you know, and that's well within those rights. So, you know, it's kind of like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs getting nervous. You know what I mean?
I understand that.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susan Bousquet, and I live at 600 Lenox Avenue in Daytona Beach. I'm here this evening with comments about the Bayshore development as well, and I appreciate this opportunity to address this body. First, I'd like to say that we do welcome the Bayshore development. We appreciate their investment in the community. I think that it's a wonderful demonstration of confidence in the potential of Daytona Beach, and that's a good thing for the community. I know that plans will come before you for consideration as part of this process, and thank you for clarifying that you're in early stages of discussions with them. So as those discussions go forward, I simply and respectfully request that you do work collaboratively with the Bayshore people, because many good things can come from this. But while you are collaborating with them and promoting this development, please don't lose sight of the neighborhood, of the residents, of the people who are here when it's not bike week or race week. We have concerns about the parking garage. What we've been told by the Bayshore representatives is they're proposing a 5 to 6 story parking garage at the site of the current existing Lenox Avenue beach approach. I've come to Daytona Beach on vacation myself before I was lucky enough to live here. And I was happy to pay extra for an oceanfront room. It's wonderful to come on vacation and treat yourself and enjoy that spectacular ocean view. So I understand if they erect a high-rise building and people, human beings, are there enjoying the view, but I don't think cars and trucks need to have oceanfront direct on the beach access. So when that part of the plan comes to your attention, if you could be mindful of the fact that we'll be losing our magnificent ocean breezes and beach view, and we'll be looking at a multi-story concrete parking garage with the attendant parking and traffic issues that will accompany that project. I also understand there'll be a walkway for pedestrians only, no vehicle approach, but there'll be a walkway. The plans that I've seen place the walkway on the north side of the proposed parking garage and on the south side of the existing Westgate building, Harbor Beach Resort. And we don't want it to be more of an alleyway than a walkway. We're mindful of concerns about openness and safety, and we don't want criminal activity lurking in the shadows. Those are the issues that are on the minds of some of us in the neighborhood. So I simply request that you keep that in mind as you carry on your important work to promote this development. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And is there anybody out there in the audience that wants to speak about this project? Okay, here's the deal. It hasn't been brought to us at all. This is the best way to do this, is that when that particular project gets brought to the redevelopment board, then come up and speak when the project's in front of us. Because it really, and you're never wasting time speaking out in the public, but I haven't looked at it. A lot of us haven't gone through and kind of dug through the details, because understanding when a project is getting developed in the early stages, plans are going to change. They have to. Every single construction project I think that ever existed, when it started out in the very beginning and what it ended up being is completely different. And that's one of the things they do. They're going to come in, they're going to see what works, what doesn't work, what the people want, what the people don't want. And they're going to try to find a happy medium for everybody. But at this time, I haven't seen it. And a lot of us haven't seen it. So it's really, it's wasting a little bit of time on your behalf, because you're just going to have to come back up next month or whatever, or the month after, whatever month it gets brought to this board, just to restate what you're saying today. And I cannot keep you from speaking, though. I cannot do that. So if you still want to speak, you're able to do so. But I will have to do it and set up a time, because we're supposed to limit the public comments to 3 minutes. So we're not all here till wee hours of the morning. So if you still want to speak, you're more than welcome to do so. You raised your hand, so. Do we have can we work that timer? Do we know how to do it? Or I'll do it manually.
Like the Dave Chappelle wrap it up sign, do we need to? Okay, I totally get what you're saying, and I think you're absolutely right about that. Maybe I think we're just like panicked right now. Like, I mean, put yourself in our position. Like, unless you have $1 million, you don't have an ocean view here. So we're so lucky to have it. And my grandmother bought our house back in like '37, and I grew up in that house. My dad grew up in that house, and now it's so special for me to be with my husband and my kids, to be standing in our yard and see the moon coming out of the water. It's beautiful. And so when we get word and like see, we get things in the mail with blueprints of like it's gone and there's a parking garage, like we panic. So of course we're going to show up and be like, please help us. And
I
so
definitely understand.
I understand, like, when I think more of our concern is like we're just coming here today so that when they do come to you and they are changing things, that you already know, like you're prepared you already know, like we're already, you know what we want, that we're, just a little nervous. And we do have like a compromise, like on Seabreeze where they built over the approach, that would work, we're open to anything that just like, please just don't take it. Okay, thank you.
Did you need your name? Ma'am,
Oh, I'm sorry.
we just need to get your name and address on the record. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Judy Dennis. I live at 625 Lenox. We have seen proposed site plan. Our concerns are for our neighborhood. It has been described as a third world. We don't feel that way. If you go up and down the streets, Revelo, Lenox, 5 years ago, some of the houses were in disrepair. There are some that still need to be repaired, but for the most part, everybody has worked very hard on their houses, me included. And this development, though we really do welcome it, and Daytona needs something like this, the abandonment of the Lenox approach, we weren't really given but 2 weeks' notice. The county commission voted for it. Losing the approach is hard, but we know that progress has to be done. What we'd like for the board to do here is keep in sight that all of us in the neighborhood, the immediate neighborhood, there's a church, there's an abandoned library that will probably be revitalized somehow. But keep in mind that we all care about where we live, and we're totally willing to work with Bayshore so that all the public has an access. There are ways to do it so it will actually bring more traffic to them and still keep our way of life. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? All right, moving right along. The first item on the list is item number DEV 2013-055, parking lot site plan for 705 Main Street.
I'd like to declare a conflict of interest and recuse myself.
Absolutely.
Becky?
You can still sit up, can't you, or?
It'd
Teresa,
be
you can
better
still
if she
sit
came
up.
down in case there's any questions or
Yes, 'cause
that she needs to answer.
Directly. Ray, are you going to speak on?
I'll let Parker Mitchenberg, who's in the audience here representing this case, and he can speak to some of the details, but just want to introduce the fact that we're talking about here is putting in a parking lot that also has a place there for those events, and in Main Street, it's a little different than just a normal parking lot site plan approval, and that there are 4 conditions that have to be met. Those are up there right now. That's the on-site stormwater issue, the landscaping. You'll note that there's some tree grates and the Washington palms have to be there. Those are specific. The pavers have to be there. You see that on Main Street now, and this is something else that's called out so that you can actually have those activities out there, what they call temporary activities, in addition to just the parking. So this is going to comply with those tests. I have, in the end of the report, I'm calling for a recommendation to approve the site plan with the understanding that there were a couple items on there that I would like to note some what I would call small changes that we probably need to address. And I want to get this out before the applicant speaks. And that is, we've already talked about this, that there's just some changes in the site plan with the tree and a light pole. And I'm going to go through this. This is just some of the background information that you have. This is the site plan, and it just needs to be updated to show the street and the light pole and as in a place where staff can work with it, because it's not that accurate right now, but it will be. And number 2 on that site plan is we'll need a detailed drawing of what that ornamental fence and gate looks like. And number 3 is we are asking that in that access drive that comes across onto Main Street, that it is designed with the same material and will look like the other access drives we have on there. That doesn't have the same pavers as what the parking lot has. It has the sidewalk pavers that are there now. So the sidewalk is the dominant feature on Main Street and not the driveway. And I've got some examples, or an example at least, to show you what that is. These are just some pictures that I've taken along the way. I'll come back to that in a second. But this is the driveway. And you can see it over across the street at full moon. That's your typical drive, and you can see that the sidewalk is what dominates, and not the drive out from the parking lot. So it's just a design detail and some materials that would need to change. Back to the buildings that are there now that would be demolished are one-story buildings. They're not significantly historic buildings on Main Street. One building was torn down, I think, in 2007, and the others are that would come down. Really works, and I look at this as a transition from what we have now to a landscape parking lot that provides more parking in the area, and then ultimately, this is the master plan. While this isn't how it has to be, the suggestion on that part of Main Street is to infill parts of Main Street with facades that look something like this. This is what's in the master plan right now. So you can see that we're not talking about one-story buildings in the future. We're talking about infilling these areas. So that's why my recommendation is to approve, because this really takes us in the right direction to get to where we want to be. This is not phase one of the E-zone master plan. This is a later phase. And eventually, we hope, once the development regulations are put in place, we can get to something that looks more like this. And that takes the cooperation of the property owners to get it done. So there you have my recommendation. I will turn it over to the Mr. Mitchenberg. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Parker Minchenberg, 1729 Ridgewood Avenue. Thank you, Reed. I did put together a rendering and kind of go through that with you guys. Basically, the regulations require that we do pavers, and Reed was alluding to one of the conditions to continue the colors and the pavers that are in the existing sidewalk and street, and we don't have any issues with that comment or the tree comment. So it's taken down a couple buildings that only seem to be rented for about 3 weeks out of the year, and replacing it with a parking lot that'll service Dirty Harry's and the Full Moon, other properties that Miss Stone owns year-round. So she is liking to move forward with it, and we're here today to seek you guys' approval. So with that, if you have any questions, I'll try and answer them.
Any questions from the board?
Sir?
Mainly from Reed, master plan, you were saying that was, I guess, after the parking lot's in place, how many years is it, or months, is there a time schedule to when the next development would be for, I mean, I'm just saying from concern from just having another empty view to what buildingscape would be, how long would be a time frame for that? I was just curious.
I think that's really up to our ability to implement some of the changes. It really is. I think ball's in our court to put in the infrastructure, the management that the E-zone plan calls for, and hopefully you're all looking at that, and you can see there's a lot that has to be done to get to where we want to be, and it has to be market driven at the end. If there's not a market for it, it's not going to happen.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering if it was.
Sure.
Reed, I have a general statement. As far as your recommendation, I could agree with it. I could see that she meets all the requirements to do this. But I think for future policy, would we be able to form a motion for approval and then also ask that we change the land development code for future items that come before this board on Main Street? Because we've seen this happen over and over again. I do not want to see buildings being knocked down. And this is bona fide. It's going to be used for year-round parking and everything like that. But we have seen situations where buildings have come down to be used for itinerant vending, and that's contrary to to development. And it's I mean, you're taking a building off the tax roll and you're going to have an empty parking lot. And what I would like to do is approve this, but also request that a change in the land development code happens, that any future buildings on Main Street that get torn down will not be able to have itinerant vending, so that way there's no incentive for somebody to knock a building down and benefit from itinerant vending during the special events.
I don't think there's anything that prevents this board from making a motion to that effect.
Yeah, well, we kind of need to handle it two different ways. I suggest that you handle this
Wait, can you speak louder?
application-
I'm sorry.
Let's do it two different ways. First, just deal with this applicant. And then when this item is over, the board should have a discussion about whether that's something that they want staff to look into, a text amendment. And so
'Cause we've
let's take
seen-
it step by step. So first deal with them and then move on to whether or not the board is in favor of a text amendment in general.
Dino, I have a question of you. If you're against more parking lots on Main Street, why are you for improving this one?
No, I'm not against more parking lots on Main Street. I'm against tearing down a building and being able to, in this case, you can see where she probably will benefit, from having year-round parking for Dirty Harry's. But we have seen cases like, I believe it was the building right next to the jewelry place that was actually torn down so that they could actually just have itinerant vending 2 times a year. Not for parking, not for any other reason other than just to have itinerant vending. We've seen that happen at least 3 or 4 different occasions. Reed, how many times has a building on Main Street been torn down that currently uses the itinerant vending rule on Main Street?
I can't tell you. I only know of one building's torn down, and it was actually used for the seating space, and that's the building that's on this block. And that became a plaza area and seating for an active restaurant and bar. So not during my tenure here. I don't know the numbers.
Okay.
Can't tell you.
Well, it's happened.
Yeah.
I agree with Dino. I think that I completely agree with you that this one we approve, but let's make a motion to not have any more parking lots on Main Street.
I think first we need to make a motion on this one.
Yeah, I understand that. But
So-
I just want to go on record that I'm agreeing with Dino's reasoning here.
Well, I kind of disagree because I've seen buildings get tore down. I've yet to see a new building get built. And I appreciate what Reed said regarding the E-zone master plan and what we see in the future. But to continue tearing down buildings and to allow for parking, and I mean no offense by this, but the Bacon Blues is open a handful of days. Full Moon Saloon is closed most of the time, and the parking lots are empty. There's ample parking around there. The only time we need parking on Main Street is during Bike Week and Biketoberfest, at which time we fill up every parking space with a tent and a vendor. So I understand that, that we're saying that this is a parking lot, but all this really is more vendor space. As far as going towards the master plan, I see that, but all we're doing is creating a vehicle to where we're turning the parking lot into a more money-generating vehicle to where there won't be more bricks and mortar and increased tax base for the county, the city, and our redevelopment fund. So, I mean, right now, drive down Main Street every day of the year, and there's maybe 3-4 weeks out of the year that you can't find a park space. The rest of the time, you shoot a cannon down the street. There's enough parking down there.
So you're agreeing with the second part of my discussion.
I mean, if parking's needed, it's needed during the special events, which at that time, we don't have any parking because everything gets filled up by vendors, and then everybody on Main Street and in those areas that takes up that space expects somebody else to provide the parking for them.
So you would be in support of a land development code? Forget about this item right now.
I think we stepped away. This actually is a time of asking questions to the applicant, and then when
Your drawings are nice.
So,
appreciate that,
well,
Dino.
the reason we're getting out of step here is because we have public comments, public for or against the project, and then when all that's said and done, then we can interject our opinions.
problem.
Because we're going to find ourselves speaking again.
Yeah.
So it's my fault. I'll let us get a little bit off track, but does anybody on the board have a question for the applicant?
Thank you.
Now, is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak for this project? Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak against this project?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. Been there, done that. You've heard that phrase before. It's unfortunate that you all don't have collective memory. We've gone through this now 4 different times.
Yeah.
The first time in the 80s, next to Hot Leather, they wanted to tear down a building, and they were going to put vending. So they said, well, at least pave it, put brick pavers, which is what you're talking about now, and also landscape the front. And if you've noticed that landscaping isn't what it used to be. Then we went through it with Froggies. Froggies had space next door to it. Then Suzanne Kuhn said, we can't do this anymore. We can't have these empty spaces on Main Street. You have to have brick frontage, so when people walk, they can walk in and out. So you don't want open spaces on Main Street. So they made Froggies make a facade so it looked like there was a building there. All right, they have a little patio and whatnot. Then we went through it a third time. Fernwood Hotel. We can't save the building. It must be torn down. We will put a building up within a year. We'll start on construction. Well, guess what? It's been 17 years and it's not there. All right? We've been through this one time, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. When you look at it architecturally, you want to have buildings up to the front. Okay? This will be the 17th parking lot facing Main Street. There will be more parking lots than bars now on Main Street. You are destroying Main Street little bit by little bit. You can deny this tonight. You don't have to pass it. You don't have to worry about talking in the future about something that's already been discussed and is settled history. No, they've not put it into a resolution, but it was common knowledge that you did not want to tear down buildings for vending for at least 20 years. This is an attempt to tear down 2 buildings for vending. There were 5 buildings there. 4 of the 5 will have been torn down. All right? There'll be 1 little tiny building left, and once that's gone, you'll have a big, ugly parking lot just like the Fernwood Hotel. There's no building there. All right? As you go down the street, there's no building, no building, no building, no building. The idea that someday, you've waited 22 years for a building to go into Hot Leather. You think this is coming anytime soon? Please vote this down.
Anybody else in the audience for or against this project? Teresa, would you like to speak on behalf of your?
Do I need to introduce myself?
Yes, please.
Teresa Doan, 9 South Wild Olive Avenue. It is a goal of the city that Main Street become a year-round district with year-round business. And I completely support that philosophy. But I would also say that what hurts Main Street more than anything is the significant shortage of parking. And you may think that there's ample parking, but I run businesses there, and I can tell you that at night, on weekends, there is not ample parking. I have a lot in front of the full moon, and I can use that for the bank and Dirty Harry's. But if I do, I can't use the full moon that night. At the bank, we have a seating capacity of 178 people. Dirty Harry's is 153. We're talking at least 250 people that I might have to try. If I wanted car parking customers, there's really inadequate parking on the street. So if you could think of this as a bridge over troubled waters, this is certainly not the end game. But for the past 2 years, I've been improving the facilities at the bank and Dirty Harry's. I've put in new sound systems, new stages, new furniture, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all part of my goal to try to develop the year-round business. The events are what they are, and in my opinion, they're not growing, they're shrinking. I think year-round business is more important than ever. But I'm here to tell you, it's very hard for me to advertise a $10 a seat show, and there's no place to park. I can't guarantee them a place to park. And I'm telling you, at nights, on weekends, especially in the summer. And anytime the Ocean Center has an event, it's maxed out. Same with the Peabody, it's maxed out. Anyway, that's how I feel, and that's why I'm going to this level of investment for those, for, the bank and Dirty Harry's.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So your intent is for that it's the most important thing to you is the year-round parking?
Excuse me?
So the most important thing to you is the year-round parking to make successful year-round business?
Let me be the first to say that if these two buildings were gone, my event business would probably be better. And I'm here to admit that to everyone, okay? But it doesn't make enough economic sense. And what makes it work economically is the hope that I can develop my year-round business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to operate, them more aggressively.
So being that you don't have that space now for vending, would it be a fair give and take to say that you'd be willing to sacrifice the one for the year-round parking?
I think it would be a very unfair disadvantage that you would put that property to compared to the rest of the street. By and large, I don't do a lot of vending at my properties. I have one food vendor at Dirty Harry's on that side of the street, and I have one outside food vendor actually, I have a hot dog guy and a
I know
major
you do
food
less
vendor.
than everyone else.
I don't have big T-shirt displays. It's just me that sells T-shirts inside. I'm not an itinerant vendor, intensive property. But that's really not the point. I don't think. I think you need to be fair and measured and on par with the street, and do what is good for the street and do what is good for the city.
And that's what I try to, because I'm not on Main Street, I tend to look besides just that Main Street as the city as a whole. And you know how I feel, I've been saying it for almost 30 years now, how I feel about itinerant vending. So I consider it a definite disadvantage to everyone else who's not on those four streets in the city.
Well,
So as far through the years, the tearing down of buildings and the development of them, I haven't seen the growth that was supposed to be associated with it on the street.
well,
And that's just my opinion.
if you want customers who drive cars, you've got to provide parking. Bikes have been able to come to our businesses because the street is basically motorcycle parking, and you can put a lot more bikes in spaces. And believe me, we love our bikers, But if we ever want to go to, and I do feel that Main Street should become more mainstream and have a broader appeal, and I've tried to do that with my two businesses.
I have a question. Are you gonna go with the ornamental fence, or they said they give you a choice? I don't see it here, a vinyl or ornamental. Which one are you going for the perimeter of the property?
It's aluminum?
It's going to be like a aluminum square panel like you would see on a balcony or around a swimming pool. So it's going to be an aluminum fence 4 feet tall.
Okay. All right. Now, and I'm not a sound engineer or what have you, but removing that building, is it going to create, I guess in theory, with Dirty Harry's, they have the band in the back, so in theory, the amplification would bounce off the building and go towards the neighborhood, whereas with the removal of the building,
Go toward the beach.
go
Yeah.
towards the beach, so it might even be better for the neighborhoods.
I'm not an acoustical engineer, but, in layman's terms, I think the same as you.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, that's it for questions for you.
Again, we're just questions for the applicant.
I have a
That's why I
question,
stopped.
Teresa. Ms. Doan. The two buildings that are coming down, 719 and 720 Main Street, that are going to be replaced by a parking lot, and it will have vending on it during the events times. But the two stores that are there now, you own those two stores.
Yes.
And during events, do you not have merchandise being sold in those two stores?
I have what you call itinerant vendors in them.
Okay.
They're tenants who come in for the event.
So that square footage right now, during special events, you will lose that inside space, covered space, and you'll be exchanging it for people on the outside in open space. But you don't gain anything in vending either way because you're giving up the two stores. Is that correct?
I get lease payments.
Yeah.
I get lease money with no risk.
So it's not like you're gaining a great deal by giving up these two buildings, is it? I mean, I don't see it. I mean, I see it as pretty much a fair exchange for the city and you and everybody concerned. You don't see that way, Tim?
No.
Okay.
Because there's the loss in tax revenue, there's the loss in, because she, as a property owner, there's the saving, and I'll say she because she's the applicant, is that there's no maintenance, there's no upkeep, there's the savings that she's gonna be taxed on a rate of unimproved land versus improved land, and at the same time, you're gaining a benefit of being able to gain income on unimproved property, which no one else in the city's
Yeah,
allowed.
and Teresa's not the.
She's not the only one.
Yeah, but.
I mean, I'm just saying, we're just addressing this
But
applicant.
my point is those two buildings are now used for itinerant vending during special events, and the rest of the year they're not used anyway. So I see it as a pretty fair exchange.
And honestly, yeah, it is. Well, it's.
And it gives you the parking you need.
And it has always been the policy of Doan Management that if we have parking lots, that we allow the public to use them when we're not using them. I could see, the barber shop, perhaps maybe some of their customers parking there, the surf shop, because by and large, my business will be nighttime business, and they are daytime business. And I, Joe's Crab Shack, some of the parking in the area has gone to them. And not all of the other properties on the street allow the public to park there. I don't track them all. I know some adjacent properties, if our employees or a customer park there, within 5 minutes, they had a very unpleasant experience.
So you allow other people, the public, to park on your...
We do. If there's an occasion when we're having a show or something and we need it, we will cordon it off for our use that night or that day. But in general, we keep our parking lots. I have a parking lot across the street from the Boot Hill. We don't regulate it. We don't invite people to use it, but we allow people to use it. And I would do the same with this property.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think it would be a fair thing to ask again, or at least just ask to see what would be for other people's minds here that I'm already picking up, is what would be the time constraint on, I like the idea of having it look better with the parking lot and whatnot, but I think other people are thinking that they want a fascia, they want a building, and what would be the time amount from parking lot to supposed having a fascia or a building there? That's what I think other people are thinking. They just don't want it an empty lot, they don't want it another parking lot, is what I think I'm picking up. There's going to be another building built in place.
I don't know if maybe at one point of the presentation, you saw the master plan,
Yeah, I saw the master
and that's kind of conceptual of,
Master plan is, I think what other, John and everybody else is picking up is that they don't like the idea of just having a parking lot, they want it to be storefront.
right.
The only
But-
thing,
but-
can I
I'm
just
sorry.
jump in for
Yeah,
a second here? I just want to remind the board that this application is going to be based on the text or our land development code as it exists. And right now, parking lots are permitted use. There's a different use for temporary parking lots, which is a conditional use. So I think some of this discussion is probably for the next part of
Right,
it that
that's-
Dino wanted, but, so if the board would just focus on the site plan criteria that's in here and apply it to this applicant, it might be more
Right, yeah.
beneficial.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and make the motion, and then we can have more discussion if it's necessary. If that's okay? I move approval of DEV 2013-055 parking lot site plan for 705 Main Street.
I second the motion.
Okay, do we do I guess a roll call or a?
Well, during the discussion of the motion, so you're saying it would be inappropriate for me to try to tag a future land development code amendment to this? So
You
we
should
would have
do
to
that
make this
next.
discussion afterwards?
Correct.
Okay, all right. But it would be all right for us to vote and bring up a future land development code after this
Correct.
item? Okay.
Do a roll call.
Mr. Pospalakis?
Yes.
Mr. Kostadakis?
No.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Ms. Stone?
Abstained.
Abstain.
Oh, abstain.
Yes. It appears that it does pass. What was the number on that?
Okay.
One no.
Okay, now, it would be appropriate for me to bring up, or do we have to go through the agenda first?
Well,
Yeah, the chair, it's your decision as to when you want to do it. My only suggestion is that when you guys talk about it, if the board comes to consensus, to ask staff to research, one, if it can be done, two, how,
Okay,
and then
I
three, to
understand,
bring back.
But I don't want to have another building brought before me being torn down next month. So can we at least pass a moratorium on any future?
No,
Okay.
no, the city commission would be the only one acting that could, if somebody wanted to go to the city commission and,
Okay, but
yeah.
I don't think it's that complicated. I mean, I think that we could discuss it at this meeting instead of having staff bring it back to us because, quite frankly, the motion could be as simple as, I'd like to move that we change the land development code to require that any future building that is knocked down on Main Street will not have the ability to have itinerant vending sales on the parking lot,
Well, we can't make that land development code. We only can make a recommendation.
Yeah, I know. And I'd like to make that recommendation to the city commission.
So basically, this is how it would work. If this board has this consensus, staff, hopefully, could bring back a text amendment for your vote next month.
Okay, all right. Then, well then,
That's
do
what
I
he would like
move
to
for this board to,
Okay, so we've got a couple people. Is everybody in agreement? That's what you guys want?
I think we need to have a discussion about it first. Right, my personal opinion is that it should be applied evenly to everybody that's there. So either it's light switch, right? Either everyone can do it or they can't do it. Because I think you put some people at a disadvantage when you say, well, all of you are grandfathered in and you can continue to do it, but you can't do it and you can't do it. And
yeah, and we are addressing, we've had these suggestions for revisions to the master plan guidelines and stuff like that brought before us. We haven't yet got to the ability to pass any. And I know what you're talking about is consistency, but at the same time, you don't want to see buildings knocked down for itinerant vending. I mean, that should be a number one priority here. I mean, look at the tax roll. I mean, we're taking, we're diminishing the value, of the property taxes in that area by allowing this to happen. So I think, so you're not giving somebody an advantage or disadvantage. What you're doing, it's almost like a loophole. I mean, it's almost like right now there's an incentive for somebody, he could actually make more money off of tearing down a piece of property and having itinerant vending on that property on Main Street than he can from having to close down building and opening, just renting a building to somebody 2 times out of the year. And what I'm saying is that we need to remove that from the, it's not, it's not giving anybody an advantage over anybody else because we're being upfront. This is what we're going to do. We'll address revisions to the master plan guidelines later, but right now we need to take care of this problem. We want to make sure that the buildings that are there stay there. If there's a bona fide reason for a building to come down, that's fine. But at least take away the ability, take away the incentive for somebody to tear down that building so that he can have itinerant vending. I think that's terrible, and you're not doing that. I'm not saying that you're doing that, okay? I'm saying there are people that will do that, okay? I mean, I've been to Dirty Harry's, I've been to Boot Hill. In fact, at the Boot Hill, most of that area is all open area, and people standing around and listen to a band, and there's a couple bars in the middle. Full Moon, I mean to say, you're not
Not itinerant.
doing it like the others, okay? But you go to some properties, and I mean, it's like 10 to 10 to 10 to 10. I mean, it's like you have an area to walk through to get to one place to the other, but it's all for the purposes of, buying T-shirts that are for $20, which your average gift shop on A1A cannot compete against, because they could.
Is there any statute that you have to be open a certain amount of days for said property to be open for the events? So,
If it's contiguous, if
nobody's gonna come to town, buy a property, tear it down, and think they're gonna magically.
no, but the property, but John Nicholson brought up the example, and that was that something leathers, hot leathers or whatever, and they tore down the building right next to them.
So
and-
it's adjacent to a property.
Right. So and right now, if you go to that property, I actually have a picture of it to show you the itinerant vending that goes on that property, if you want to see it,
I would just like to interject that I think our focus should not be on these 14 days a year. And I understand your opposition to those 14 days a year, but our focus should be on what do we need to do to make this area go the other 350 days a year.
Oh, I agree with you.
And I just cannot stop saying it, but you go to Winter Park, they have all these parking garages off the street, behind the blocks. Lots of parking garages. I go to Greenville, South Carolina. Lots of parking garages, all behind the storefronts. Joe's Crab Shack is a 300-seat restaurant. You know how much parking a restaurant requires? Tons. I have friends from sports that call me up and ask me if, when they have their reunion at Joe's Crab Shack, if they can park in my parking lots. I am here to tell you, I don't know that the members of this board fully appreciate how much a lack of parking holds back this area. I believe that when the cars were taken off the beach on this 1 mile here, that parking garages should have been built at that time to help replace the parking and the traffic that was lost. Instead, what has happened, instead of this having a synergistic effect where people come to the center of town, it has spread the people out because there's no parking here. And they go to other parts of the beach where they can park. We have Ocean Center events. The parking is totally peaked out. It even happens at the Peabody. I just think day in and day out, we don't realize how much of a problem it causes. It stops Main Street from developing around.
Oh, and I agree.
There is, where I am, no parking is required by code.
Yeah, I understand that.
We are in a parking restricted district designed to drive parking to the Ocean Walk Garage. None of my customers are going to walk from my place to the Ocean Walk Garage. We need a parking garage there. It would help the businesses year-round. And then maybe it would make economic sense to build these stores and where they could have customers that could park. I just strongly feel we should be focusing on developing year-round and not be so.
I think most the fears, from what I'm hearing from most people, is, I mean, take it from Adam International. I know all business property owners had buildings when they bought those lots. One person in particular, I'm not gonna say any names, but I've sat there for the past 10 years and see, in particular, this person buy a lot that has a building, tears it down, puts a parking lot up supposedly, and he's done that for 10 years now, and it's nothing now. I'm the only sole vendor on the street. I've got tons of parking and not many customers to show for it. I don't think it's gonna get to that, but that's what I think a lot of people are fearing. And I 100% agree with you, having a parking lot back there will benefit the majority of the businesses on that one side. But I think it's just the fear of the majority of people of not seeing an empty lot. Even with parking, it can be beautiful with beautiful fence and beautiful foliage, but they just don't want to see that. They want to see what's in the master plan. And I think it's a timeline. That's what I think a lot of people are scared about.
And I
They want to know. People want to know exactly what time this is going to happen.
He's been waiting
We
this
can't
long.
answer that, so.
Go ahead. That's right.
Teresa, I understand your plight of parking probably more than you do, being located where I am. Okay. I've been here all my life, and I know what taking cars off the beach did to this area. But at the same time, I've also been here for the entire lifetime and watched the growth of itinerant vending. And when you say look at the other 350 days out of the year minus Bike Week and Biketoberfest, I've watched the slow decline of Main Street, and some people's perception is it's lack of parking. My perception is it's lack of incentive to form a year-round business, because, once again, you can take a building and have one building that could be 1,000 square feet and have 10,000 square feet of empty space next to it and generate income from a supposed parking lot, and not have the risk or the incentive to do a year-round business. The majority of the people down there don't have what you have invested into their properties. But I watch them year after year, load them up for 21 days between Bike Week and Biketoberfest, and then shut them down for the other 300 and some odd days of the year. And I know supposedly there's someone out there counting who's open and who's not. But I'm telling you, there are people out there that are not open 350 days out of the year.
Oh, by the way, the full moon is open.
No, but
It is open.
But Bank Blues, I've been here. I've been in Bank Blues a bunch of times. Love the Red Elvises. Okay, I mean, I've been there. I've through the events and stuff like that. But Bank Blues is not open 350 days out of the year,
You mean 250?
or 250 days out of the year. I mean,
It's part of the dirty areas.
I know. So,
But
But what I'm saying, yeah, no, I understand you're trying, but I know there's other places down there that aren't. I mean, and they slide through year after year, and unfortunately, and Dustin, as far as, people getting grandfathered in and not being grandfathered in, that happens every day throughout this community. People have been grandfathered in for signage, for parking, for setbacks. That happens. Sooner or later, you have to draw a line, and some people are on one side of the line, some people are on the other side of the line, and then you move forward from there. So it happens. So yeah, eventually we have to draw the line. When's it stop? And what's not fair for that guy who's next to Teresa, who can't tear down that building at one point, you got to think about the guys that are one block away from Main Street that aren't afforded that same benefit of itinerant vending. But they have to live and die by the same rules of the redevelopment zone, be it setbacks, colors, design requirements, things like that. So it's not a level playing field. It never is. But but sooner or later you have to draw a line. And like I said, I don't think that itinerant vending has been a growth factor for Main Street. I think it's stifled it. I think it's pulled down people's resolution to go there and make it a year-round business, because they don't have to. And that's all I have to say, because I'm hungry and I want to go have dinner.
I have a question.
No.
Reed, let me ask you this. In the E-zone, in the future plans, with these beautiful multi-storied retail and loft apartments and all that, what's the plan for the parking for the future Main Street?
I think it really is the same as what Teresa was talking about in terms of a parking garage right there in the back of some of these buildings. You know, right there at Peabody, the idea was to create a pedestrian and walking area that's through there, but right on the other side of Noble, starting with the Corbin property and then running towards the beach, that was intended to be a parking garage and a hotel, and so you're going to have a complex there that could be built. The hope is that a hotel will help drive a parking garage. I think what we hear is that, no, a garage needs to be there first, and then we can get the hotel at a later time. Do the garage first. So there's a debate. I know it's happening with the county, and the city, and there's been discussions about how to move something forward with or without a hotel attached at this point.
To address the Main Street businesses now.
Well, no, I wouldn't
needs.
say that. I would say it's to address parking in general in that area that includes Joe's Crab Shack, going to the beach, the boardwalk, wherever you're going. To put a second garage out there might be something that is beneficial. But it hasn't, again, I've only heard.
Well, that's the deal that the city made with the Marriott mortgage holder prior, when the Marriott went under, and that we're allowed to use the parking lot currently that the Hilton has for parking to build a high-rise as long as we guarantee them so many spaces.
Right. Let me tell you that right now, the difficulty in all of this is the ownership. It's separate ownership. We have a piece up there that we could build on right now if we could work something out on a long-term lease with the Hilton. But I'm not aware of any discussions or anything changing right now, I think, with that property.
Can you give me some idea of where this proposed property for this garage is? I'm a little confused.
Well, okay. If I could, just for the sake of time, I can talk to you about and show you afterwards, or online you can pull it off if you don't have the zone plan.
I do have it.
So, I would pull that out. There's the plan shows it very clearly as to where the garages are, where the parking was suggested.
Okay.
Not that it has to be there. It's just talking about if there's this much happening out here, you need to build these garages. The garages were really tied into, okay, build a hotel, build a garage with it, put additional parking in there so that we can start looking at connecting new development along Main Street, opportunities for those new businesses that are going to come in, and the existing business, to have that additional parking, say, on the ground floor. Now, you want some easy access parking. You don't want to be driving up 4 floors. I think Tim is somebody who's on a ground floor, and he's got a parking garage in behind him. And I don't know how many customers you have going in that parking garage and going up to the 4th floor and saying, this is convenient parking, even though it's right there. I guess you can rappel down the side of the building, but it's you.
They'd rather fill up my parking lot instead of going into the parking garage.
Right. So, I'm not a fan necessarily of parking garages, but some done well are very different from maybe what we've seen so far.
Yeah, there's some beautiful ones, like Teresa said, in Winter Park. You don't even know they're parking garages.
Well, that, and that they work well, they function well. Not all parking garages are created equal.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, I want to move that the city staff look into bringing before this board at our next meeting some alternatives as to changing the land development code to prohibit itinerant vending on any future buildings that are torn down on Main Street.
I second the motion.
So in essence, we're seeing what you guys can do and can't do, basically, or what we're allowed to do.
Yeah, I'm taking this, if somebody wants to come in and knock down a building on Main Street, and we'll have to come up with some language, you could do that, but you couldn't have itinerant vending. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
That the reason of tearing down the building cannot be justified.
Well, we don't want to, the reason is because we don't want to have an incentive for somebody to be able to make money off of tearing down this building, you know?
Can I ask Carrie a question? What makes us so different than the restaurant on the river that we said, okay, fine, we'll let you slide with less parking, but you're not allowed to vend in your parking lot? What makes this different?
Well, they agreed to that. So I'm not terribly familiar with all of the itinerant vending
No.
regulations. So
I guess what I'm saying is it's not that we could request that land development code change. There's really no reason that, I mean, what would be the legal reason why they couldn't?
why we
Say-
couldn't
say
prohibit it?
We've drawn the line as of
The
today.
thing that I don't know about is, number one, whether it's a text amendment or something we're dealing with outside of this. Two, I'm not sure how many properties we're talking about. Like, I don't know how many people are allowed itinerant vending. And so
Yeah, well, I mean, there's really, sorry to interrupt. I mean, there's really no limit on the number of itinerant vendors because of it.
but it's a limited geographical area though, right?
It's limited to Main Street, B Street, Blue, and Mary McLeod Bethune Boulevard.
So-
It's those streets. And so what we do is, we repeal Article 14. There's, the proclamations made that we repeal it for these two special events. And we allow this activity to happen. So when they go to do that, why can't it be stated that, we repeal Article 17 or 40, whatever it is, for these special events that have been vacant prior to this date, and
Yeah.
so on and so
And
forth.
Carrie,
It might
right?
be, that simple.
And Carrie,
I just don't want to answer like off the cuff without researching it
understand,
and
but if you
affecting
look-
somebody's property rights,
But
somebody
like I
may
have-
be like,
I
I
have
had
Dan-
planned on doing that.
I have Dan Webster's recommendations right here. Another problem with itinerant vending, the way it's currently written in the code, is that there's no limitation. If you have a contiguous building next to an empty lot, that empty lot, he's recommending that the sales the outside sales be limited to no more than 100% of the interior covered retail space of the business contiguous to the empty lot. Well, right now, that's not written in the code. So you could have a 3,000 square foot building, buy up the 10,000 square feet north of you or east of you, and 4,000 square feet, west of you, and have a flea market out there, because there's no limitation as far as, the percentage of the amount of property that you own and how much itinerant vending you could have. And like I said, I'm not targeting Teresa, because she's the one that is not taking advantage of this to the full degree. It's it's other property owners, and that's why I'm saying we should nip it right now so that no more buildings get torn down for this reason. And that's not, like I said, when I'm saying that, I'm qualifying myself. You did not do it for this reason, but other people will come and do it for this reason.
So to be clear, the motion on the table is just, you're moving to ask staff to come up with text proposals for our review at the next meeting,
Correct.
and then we would.
And then you could turn it up, you could say yes to it, you could say no to it.
So, and I think there's a second, all right, there's a motion, and a second,
There is a
right?
second, yes. All those in favor of this option, and having to go through the explanation again, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
So I guess we'll be looking at that next month. Since we're already in board comments, we'll go back to the redevelopment projects update. Is there anything else that you would like to bring before the board?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I have a question of Reed. Can you just give me some clarification on that garage at the Russian Proto Group's condo hotel there? At one time, it was going to be that robotic garage on the north side of Oak Ridge, and then I think that I heard you say something about the garage is now going to be on the west side of A1A for that property?
Yeah, as you may recall, we talked about and requested that there be some additional parking on the west side provided. Because of the robotics, instead of looking at maybe 100 parking spaces, they're looking at more because the robotics isn't going to work out for them with the vendor, what they were trying to do. So they're reconfiguring some of the floors, some of the units and how they'll look, and they are going to come back to us, and I expect by next month we could see this. So we might have two big projects in front of us in July, and that would be a revision of that PD, an amendment to the PD that would include now this garage on the west side.
But will the garage on the east side still be there, just will it be configured differently?
There'll be the garage that will be on the ocean side, the east side, would be for the condo project, and the hotel would be using the one across the street.
Got it.
Across Atlantic.
So the garage on the east side, it will not be automated anymore, correct?
That's correct. So unfortunately, that cool technology is just not going to happen.
Well, that cool technology, I think, scared us.
Yeah,
Okay.
I understand. And in any case, that we'll have a chance to see something, I would think, in the next month.
Do you know what property they purchased for that garage on the west side? Existing property?
It's the old CVS.
Oh, the Ocean Waters?
Yeah,
property.
CVS, the old
Used to
CVS
be an old
pharmacy.
CVS,
Yeah.
and then it was the Ocean Waters building.
Okay.
Will there be any commercial in it, or just all parking?
I'm going to wait until I see the final.
Let's wait till that comes up in front of us, and we can take a look at it and go from there. Anybody else?
I would like to know where the proposed things for the Hard Rock got sent out to residents. I'd like to know where we can get our hands on that so we can see what they're doing, because I have yet to see it also.
I understood there was some kind of a neighborhood meeting that they had. Is that
Santa.
right? So
That's
it's-
what residents said that they
Yeah.
got in the mail, like a proposed plan.
Well, I didn't get one.
Well, Hard Rock,
I need to have her get caught with her pants down here, like, start residents come up and start talking.
Well, I think what happened, since it went before the county council, so the county council voted to close down the beach approach, apparently they had to have notification, so that's probably what went into everybody's mail, is what I'm assuming, here.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to catch up now with the project and.
But for the people in the audience, when it does come before this board, it will be on the internet, and you could actually click it and get the agenda and get the attachment to the agenda. So you will see what we're going to have 3 days before the meeting.
the lady that spoke earlier, I just realized that she handed this to me, and I thought she had handed it to everybody, so I just passed it out to you.
You have one?
It's a little, what happened is I understand, I was not at the meeting, but I understand Santa, which is the South Atlantic Neighborhood Meeting, that Hard Rock representatives actually went and spoke to those folks a few weeks ago. And they got to see the plans of Hard Rock, because Hard Rock actually showed them to them. I did go to a meeting about a week and a half after that, and Kelly White, their commissioner, was there, and they were discussing it, and quite a few people were there that had concerns about it. So Hard Rock is actually the people that presented it to them. And then Hard Rock presented it to the county council. So maybe perhaps you could get it from the county.
Any other board comments?
Well, so Reed, were you gonna go, so we talked about Hard Rock. planning tonight, proto group we just talked about, the Sunoco, is that just, it's just going to June 27th planning board, that's,
It's going to the June 27th board, and I expect that we'll see some significant change, both in the text amendment and in the layout of the building.
so then does it come back to us if they
No.
modify the site?
No. It doesn't come back here. It goes on through the process.
So that we can have a discussion this in the public record, can you explain to me exactly what the proposal now is for the other 3 intersections? And each intersection, what they're going to be proposing or asking for, or what the city's recommending now? I don't know how this works.
Nothing's constructed at this moment, so I couldn't tell you, other than I think that right now, the intent is to limit, in the text amendment, the number of corners that, for example, the discussion was at these major intersections, there could be a filling station, a gas station, service station. We are looking at changing that to limit to one corner of that intersection.
And when you say that intersection, which intersection?
Of each of the intersections. Now, as you know, on Peninsula and ISB, it's a moot point because there's a station there already.
There's 2 there.
And if
yeah.
you go over to A1A and Atlantic, there's already a station there.
Well, there's not a filling station, there's a convenience store.
Convenience store, there's some pumps that were there. So they're not active, but the point is you've got something there, and so it really means that you're getting the last of the convenience store filling stations in the Atlantic CRA, South Atlantic. So,
And what about Silver Beach and Peninsula? What is the?
There's
what is-
nothing.
Well, I understand there's nothing, but at one time, that was part of the 4 corners.
No. Silver Beach and Peninsula?
Yes.
No. So it's not in the CRA, number 1.
But when we had them presented this to us, we were told at that meeting, I mean, go back and look at the records, we were told that that was one of the 4 corners.
No.
That's the 4th corner.
No.
Yes,
There's
we were.
3.
There were 4 given to
No,
us.
There's three major intersections, so.
Yes, but at the meeting we had before, we were told, and it's part of the public record, that there were 4 corners, and that's the 4th corner.
That's not
a different intersection. That was the intersection, that was the 4th intersection.
Well, I was at a different meeting, because I don't remember it. Okay.
At the other corner, there's a condominium, there's the bed and breakfast, the other bed and breakfast, and the crematorium.
Right,
There's no gas, there's no.
It's way outside of the redevelopment area, and I you know.
Could put a gas station there, because there was a gas station.
No, they can't.
was.
Not anymore.
It's not part of the, it could not be part of the text, because the text it has everything to do with the redevelopment areas.
But ISB and Atlantic, they're going to say 1 corner of that intersection can be a filling station convenience store. That's what they're going to propose at the next planning board meeting?
That's what is intended.
Okay.
At the next meeting. We'll see what it looks like. It's not done.
And I'm confused on who's making this proposal. Is the private company, oil company, making this proposal, or is the city, the staff of the city of Daytona
Sunoco
proposing
is
this?
the applicant for the text amendment.
For
just
those
as they were.
for those 3 corners?
They're the applicant for the text amendment. Which,
For the 3 corners? Is that right?
right, their text amendment
I'm just trying to get
involves-
clarification here, that's
Yeah.
all.
Her text amendment addresses 3 corners in
Okay.
Atlantic
All right.
CRA.
All the
3 intersections.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
That's it.
At that time, I will say, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Matt.
Yeah, you broke the gavel.
My tooth cracked.
Good.